Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Simplifying SOC 2 Compliance and Cloud Security. My name is Jordan and I'm in marketing here at Progress. Before we begin, I have a couple of housekeeping slides to show you the webinar control panel and how you can participate. Now I'm going to turn it over to today's presenters, Jacob and Camry.
Thank you, Jordan. Hello, everyone. My name is Camila. I'm the Product Marketing Manager for Cloud Security at Progress Chef. Today, we'll be discussing SOC 2 compliance with my colleague Jacob. He's the Product Manager for Cloud Security. Before we begin, let me run you through the agenda for today real quick. We'll start off with an overview of SOC 2, so we understand what it is and why it's important. And then we'll discuss SOC 2 compliance that's specific for your cloud infrastructure. And then move on to how you can use Chef Cloud Security for SOC 2 compliance. We've also lined up a couple of interesting demos for you and a Q&A session before we wrap up. So let's begin. SOC or SOC 2, it's short for Service Organization Control Type 2. It's a framework that was developed by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. It's a cybersecurity framework and includes guiding principles and best practices that organizations must follow with the aim to improve their security posture. Now, SOC 2 audits mainly evaluates how a cloud-based service provider handles customer data, which is sensitive information. So basically, the primary purpose of SOC 2 compliance is to ensure that if you're using a third-party service provider, they are storing and processing client data in a secure manner. There are 3 types of SOC reports: SOC 1, SOC 2, and SOC 3. SOC 1 is mainly for financial reporting, so companies processing any financial data will need to be SOC 1 compliant. SOC 2 mainly focuses on cybersecurity for IT organizations. SOC 2 addresses 5 trust service principles. It's called TSPs. This includes security, confidentiality, availability, privacy, and processing integrity. I know these are different terms, but we'll discuss each of these in detail in the next slide. And the last one here is SOC 3, which is essentially like a filtered version of a SOC 2 report. It is less detailed. So, it is less detailed for a reason so that it is easily understood by anyone, unlike the other reports. Now, SOC 2 compliance is also of 2 types. There's SOC 2 Type 1 and SOC 2 Type 2. SOC 2 Type 1 attests that all controls used by an organization is implemented correctly. It's enforced and implemented correctly. It's usually a one-time report and only for a specific point in time. On the other hand, we also have SOC 2 Type 2. This one is a continuous evaluation and it is for a period of time. And again, it attests that controls the organization is using are operationally effective. But the difference is that the evaluation is done over a period of time. Right. So, from the different SOC types that we have discussed, SOC 2 is crucial for any organization that deals with customer data. To understand this better, like what SOC 2 does and how it works, we should understand the framework that I just mentioned earlier, the 5 TSPs. Jacob will explain each of these, what each of these mean.
Thanks, Cam. So, like I mentioned, there are 5 different principles that actually uphold the SOC 2 framework, and you can see them represented on the slide here. The major one that almost everybody has to implement when they want their infrastructure to be SOC 2 compliant is security. It's actually called the common criteria. But what does security principle mean? It's essentially enforcing the protection of data and systems and from unauthorized access. So most organizations normally get this through by having some form of access control, like identity access management systems, or having access control lists. Even enforcing multi-factor authentication is something that you can do to enforce your security principle. And that one is kind of like the key one. Most organizations adopt this. Just a note before I move any further, Organizations, depending on top of the domain that they're actually working in, the kind of customers that they have, depending on all these factors, you can actually select the different principles that you have, and the way that you actually implement these controls is going to be very different, because SOC 2 is unprescriptive, like they don't define their own controls. It's completely down to you, and the best you can do, we are talking in general here, but when you do it specifically for cloud, you're going to be using the best practices that are going to be there. So we discussed security now. I'm going to move on to the next one, which is confidentiality, which mainly deals with data. So you're talking about confidential data. What is the definition of confidential data? Only a certain set of specific people should have access to that particular data. So for example, if you're engineers, only a set of engineers should have access to a particular source code, or certain financial finance teams should only have access to certain payment information. And so your data can be anything from application source code, it can be usernames, it can be passwords, it can even be business plans. So normally how management implements this principle is nowadays most of the organization do it through zero trust. So they have the principle of least privilege, like the minimum amount of permissions that are required for a person to conduct their job. That is how the permissions are given out. So that is your confidentiality principle. The next one we're going to discuss is going to be availability. And availability is pretty straightforward. It's that your system should meet their SLAs, right? So if you have like a software which you're providing to your customers, they should be adhering to their SLAs. That is essentially your uptime. And if the load is really high, then they should not crumble under that high load. So normally organizations implement this by investing in network monitoring systems. They have disaster recovery plans to make sure that this principle is actually implemented the right way. The next one we're going to discuss is going to be privacy. Privacy normally has to deal with PII, which is personally identifiable information. How you're collecting it, how you're storing it, how you're processing it. So what is PII? PII can be anything that can be used to identify an individual, be it a name, age, phone number, credit card. These are all kinds of consumer data that you might have inside your organization. And the way that you're storing it, the way that you're processing it, it'll have to adhere to a certain set of policies. Like an organization will always have like a data usage policy or a privacy policy. And there are general conditions also depending on certain circumstances. So from privacy, let's move on to the last one, which is processing integrity. So the main thing about processing integrity is all systems should work as per their design. So what they're designed to do, essentially, the way you can describe it is there should not be any delays, there should not be any vulnerabilities, any bugs. Most organizations implement this by having a really good quality assurance process. They have performance monitoring applications, and that is how they actually achieve adherence to this particular principle. So now I think I'll hand it over to Cam, where she'll discuss why organizations actually need SOC 2 compliance right now. So Cam, you can take it over from here.
Yep. Thanks, Jacob. Right. So Jacob just explained the trust principles and the role of each of these in securing data. Right. So why is this important? Why is SOC 2 compliance important? Now, we are all aware that the state of cybersecurity in today's world, right? There's constant threats. We hear it in the news. There are data breaches that happen all the time, and all of these have a huge business impact. So it's an obvious fact. Cybersecurity threats continue to grow, and companies have lost millions due to such breaches. And such incidents, the impact is not limited to the revenue. It also impacts the brand reputation and customer trust. And all of us would agree that there can be no compromise when it comes to data security or upholding customer trust. So for the same reason, SOC 2 is essential to any organization. And again, SOC 2 is not prescriptive. It's up to the organization to implement the framework based on their own security needs. And it is not mandatory, unlike other compliance protocols. For example, GDPR. It's not mandated by law. You may not be required to be SOC 2 certified, but SOC 2 compliance builds a strong foundation for your security strategy, or it can be a great starting point for your security strategy. Most organizations are SOC 2 compliant or strive to be, or are even considering it. We want to understand, how your organizations look at this. What is their perspective? Following that, so now that you understand that it is essential, let's look at some of the benefits of SOC 2, right? And the reason why SOC 2 compliance is essential is mainly because of the multiple benefits it offers. At the outset, it improves the overall security outlook of your organization. Now, this is even more important, when you understand that compliance and security are complementary. Compliance is kind of like the foundation for security. For example, if you're SOC 2 compliant, then you are securing your infrastructure. If you're SOC 2 compliant, you are also building the basis for other frameworks which overlap with SOC 2, for example, such as HIPAA. And like we discussed earlier, right, about the data breach, it is a big issue. It helps you avoid, and SOC 2 compliance helps you avoid such data breaches, and it also helps you prevent the damage that it has on your finances and reputation. Now, if your organization is SOC 2 certified, it also instills a sense of confidence in your customers. They feel more confident sharing data with you. And it can also shorten sales cycles for your clients. It makes integration with third-party service providers easier, especially anything that involves sharing data. Right. And one more and another important aspect is that it helps maintain brand reputation, right? For example, if a customer is evaluating you as a service provider, if you are SOC 2 compliant, it gives you an obvious edge over the competition. So these are just some of the benefits of being SOC 2 compliant. Jacob will help us understand how SOC 2 is specific, how it can be specific for a cloud infrastructure.
Thanks, Cam. So, like after mentioning all the different principles, the advantages of like how SOC 2 can actually help organizations, we're going to take a look deeper into how SOC 2 can be very specific for the cloud. And what we're going to take a look over here is specifically with the common criteria, which was security, like I mentioned before when I was discussing the principles. Now, within this security criteria, there are subcategories which are very important when it comes specifically to the cloud. Let's discuss them one at a time. Something that are put over technology to make sure the right people have the right access. Like depending on top of their job roles, they will only get access to that technology asset. And this helps actually protect the asset from external threats. Then we have logical and physical access controls. This is essentially when this is to restrict like your IT systems or even physical access to your facilities. You kind of like build controls around it so that you actually prevent unauthorized access in that particular area. Then we have system operations. Organizations normally implement this by having monitoring systems to keep checking for anomalies or security events or misconfigurations in their cloud infrastructure, which may result in risks. Of course, risk will also happen, but you also need to define how you actually respond to the risks, like how you contain them, how you remediate, and how you actually communicate the security incident as well, right? And then the last one, we have change management. This kind of like adheres to your SOC 2 Type 2 principle, where you're going to be auditing for a long duration of time. You actually need to figure out, you need to understand that your infrastructure will be under a constant state of change because of new business use cases, new things that you need to put into production. Like your infrastructure might change, the data that you're storing might change, your softwares might change, processes might change. So you need to ensure that whatever changes are being made are authorized changes and they're following certain protocol, and you need to prevent unauthorized changes as well. Right now, since we have discussed what is really important, what is an important aspect for SOC 2 when it comes to cloud infrastructure and the different aspects of the cloud, let's take a look at how you can leverage SOC 2 using Chef Cloud Security. I'll hand it over to Cam so that she can explain what Chef's cloud security is at a very high level.
Thanks, Jacob. Right. So, Chef Cloud Security, what is it that we offer, right? Chef Cloud Security helps you implement the compliance policy, especially like SOC 2 and CIS benchmarks, so you can quickly detect any misconfigurations on the cloud. And if any controls are failing, it also offers guidance on remediation. Cloud security also offers you complete visibility into the compliance posture of your cloud resources. So in a nutshell, Chef Cloud Security gives you continuous cloud compliance at multidimensional scale with unified visibility. Right, now that we know what it is at a higher level, let's look at how we help with SOC 2 compliance.
So, like Cam mentioned, you can implement multiple compliance policies. You can have it all across your cloud infrastructure while you have the visibility. How do you actually go about doing something like this? Well, the steps are really simple. What you need to do with Chef specifically is integrate your cloud infrastructure. Then you can actually set up scheduled cloud scans where you can audit your infrastructure. So in this particular scenario, Chef actually provides you with SOC 2 resources, your policies essentially, and your default best practices profiles also. And you can keep checking your cloud infrastructure. Depending on top of, because your cloud infrastructure is always going to change. Like I'm talking about your cloud accounts, your cloud resources, your controls might fail because of changes being made. And as soon as you see the changes being made, you can remediate them and the audits will continuously run. What this essentially helps you in doing is making sure that even though you might start off with a SOC 2 type 1 audit where, okay, your entire system is compliant, but having Chef will ensure that over a larger duration of time, you will always be running the audits and you will always be remediating. Chef will help you do these actions so that you're always going to be SOC 2 compliant, which is essentially SOC 2 type 2. Right, and while all this is happening, you will always get visibility on top of what is this compliance posture across your entire cloud infrastructure. So this happens through audit reports that happen that come every time a scheduled scan is run. You will have key performance indicators, like in terms of, do you have major controls which are failing? Do you need to take a look at specific controls? And you'll also get a historical view as to what your SOC 2 compliance has looked like over a larger duration of time. So now we have understood like how you can actually leverage Chef. We also have a demo coming up beyond this point. Now what we're going to do is we're going to show you a demo in which we are going to run a SOC 2 audit on top of an AWS environment. This is using one of our Chef frameworks called Inspec, and we are going to just show you a short demo right now.
Today we'll be talking about this SOC2 sample profile and how to run the SOC2, particularly by using the filters and also without filters. What are the prerequisites of the SOC2, or how to run, means what are the tasks we have to do before running the SOC2 profile, that we will discuss. Okay, the first prerequisite is to set up the AWS credentials. So in the AWS, to set up the AWS credentials, you have to give the access key ID, secret access key, region, and the availability zone. And you have to save in the environment RC file, and then it is ready for you to use it. Now, how to navigate to the profile? So you have to go to this particular folder, and then you have to run with the below command, the inspec exec -t and the AWS path. So when you are running only with this command, it will not give any filter. It will basically run all the controls in the given SOC2 SOC2 AWS profile. So these are the list of SOC2 controls that it will run when you are running with this command. So there are a lot of controls over there, but we can't run we can't run everything in a demo. So we will be only picking 6.1.1, and we will create another sample profile. So this is a demo SOC2 profile that we have created, and here in the example we have pasted our code. Now there are many ways to run this control. One, I have showed you that, okay, so if you have to run without any filters, you can use the inspect exec command. Now we have introduced 3 filters also. One is region, tag, and the resource ID. So if you have to run with a specific region, then you have to use the region filter. If you have to run with the tag, then you have to use the tag filter, and for resource ID you have to use the resource ID filter. So in this case, the resource ID filter is the group ID. Okay, so let me go to our terminal and I'll show you more. So this is the execution of the profile report. That is 5,326 are successful and 3,280 are failures. So for here we have used this particular command without no filters. Without any filters we have run this command, so it is running all basically it will check for all regions, and then it will search for all the security groups, and it will run. Now in the second window, if you can see, we have used 2 filters. One is AWS region, that is US East 2, and the resource ID as this one. Okay, this is the, so now resource ID is basically the group ID in AWS security group. So basically it is very unique. So we have given this 6688396. So this is basically okay. So when we are executing with this command, it will run only only the particular security group which is there. Okay, US East 2 is the region which is there in the security group, so it ran. So now see, the execution is like only up from this to this. Okay, now if you have to run basically with the filter tag, then we have to use this particular command. And how to pass the tag input is we have to give the name and the value. So in this particular security group, we are having name, and the tag, we are having a particular tag that is name is equal to SOC2. So here, if you pass the input like this, it is running the particular security group which has the tag name SOC2. Okay. So this is the execution. Now let me go back to the profile again, readme file. Okay, so in the readme file, this is the list of inputs you can give, and examples of using the resource group ID through the terminal. So these are the examples. You can just check this one and you can execute this one. Now also we have introduced a waiver.yml file. So what this waiver.yml file does is, so basically we have kept only the controls which are manual test in the waivers.yml. So if you have to, so 6.1.6 is a manual control. Okay, so we have given the control ID. This is the control ID, and run is set to false. So basically, if we are running with this command, we have to use this command, and then you can give the path of the waiver file. And if you are giving the path to the waiver file, then these particular controls which are set to false, it will not run. So this is also basically saving your time. Okay, so this is all about the SOC technical demo. I hope you understood everything, and if you have any questions, just let me know. Thank you.
Yeah, so that was our SOC2 demo by two of our engineers from our cloud resources team, Soumyadeep and Samir. I thank them. This is a pre-recorded demo, but I thank them so much for explaining the whole SOC2 process and how we can leverage Chef Inspect to actually audit your cloud infrastructure. They did do it with a few controls only because if we actually ran a complete audit scan, it would take a little bit of time, right? Now, apart from you've seen how Chef can actually run a SOC 2 audits on top of your cloud infrastructure, but like Cam had mentioned before, it's not we actually cover a lot more security benchmarks. It's not only SOC 2, and you can use the same Chef Inspect to actually run audit scans. Let's say using CIS. So we have one more demo for you in which we look at auditing an Azure environment and comparing them with CIS controls. And let's see if we can get a little bit of remediation done on top of that as well. This will be presented by Ashwini. This is a pre-recorded demo, and she's part of the engineering team as well.
For CIS Azure benchmark, and we'll take a control 2.1.1 where it actually ensures that Microsoft Defender for server is set to on. That means it's checking for the policy of virtual machine that the pricing tier should be standard. If it's not standard, then an audit get failed. And let's try to run the audit. We run this audit with help of inspect command and transport Azure. So parallelly, we'll check this AJCLI command. So here it says like the pricing tier is fee, and that means us. And here we got like the pricing tier is fair and the expected standard. That's why it got failed. And some controls we have skipped these controls, as you can see, like one control gets skipped as we was not able to do it automatically. So we have given a manual steps to run the same. So as this control got failed, we run our remediation. With chef line command and the cookbook as a foundation cookbook. We give it some time to update the pricing tier. You can see like this command get executed with a script which we have written. And here we go, like we got this YAML file. Actually it has all the content which control get passed or failed. We can see like control 2.1 state is success and control 1.1 has state success, but in this runs an manual command. So we get this output in an STT out, like we have to do remediation manually. And let's try to run the audit. Now, one control should get passed. Even we'll check edges command just we check before. Here we got our standard. Let's see our audit what we get. Cool. We got this as an pass control. One successful control, 0 control failure, and 1 control got skipped. Thank you.
So that was Ashwini presenting the CIS demo. It was using the same framework that we already have, Chef Inspect, to actually run an audit based on the CIS benchmark. So essentially, Chef, you can use Chef Cloud Security. You can use the same framework to actually adhere to multiple benchmarks. Like Cam had mentioned before, SOC2 can build. It's kind of like a really great foundation on top of which you can build further more compliance standards, things, benchmarks that you actually want to comply with, and you can. It's a great foundation for you to start your security controls with, right? So that's pretty much it. Now, I guess that was the entire webinar, but now we'll move into Q&A section. If you guys have any questions, we can answer them for you right now.
Thank you, Jacob and Kimirith, for your presentation. We're going to go ahead and jump right into our questions. Starting off with the first question here, what type of audit should I be doing? SOC 2 Type 1 or Type 2?
That's a great question, but it actually entirely depends on top of where your organization is currently. Like, for example, if you're just starting on your compliance journey, then you need to have kind of like a pre-check. You need to understand how ready you are to be SOC 2 compliant, and then identify that delta. That is, build your controls up, understand what you need to do, and that then what essentially you would be looking at is doing a SOC 2 Type 1 audit and move on to SOC 2 Type 2. Nowadays, because of compliance automation, you can directly jump to SOC 2 Type 2 and you have the best practices already in place. So that would also be a great start. You can definitely just check your cloud infrastructure immediately and check if it's actually being compliant. So it depends on your organization scenario, but definitely because of the new tooling that is coming out, you can definitely try out SOC 2 Type 2, and there's no harm in trying it out.
Excellent. Thank you, Jacob. Another question came in. I believe this was during the first demo. Can you run these scans from Chef Automate?
Yes. So Chef Automate is a different product. It provides UI for us also, a GUI, a graphical user interface, where you can actually integrate, like the 4 steps that I had mentioned. You can actually integrate your cloud accounts, your cloud resources, and you can actually select your profiles. You can customize your profiles, and you can run the audit scans. You can even schedule the scans. So, and you can see the entire report, and you can have visibility into your entire compliance posture. All that is available on Chef Automate. So whatever that we saw right now was through CLI, but whatever you're seeing there, you have a graphical user interface in Chef Automate for it as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Question here, are there any useful examples of Chef compliance automation code on GitHub?
Yeah, definitely. We'll be happy to provide them for you. I think in the follow-up mailers, you'll be getting all the resources in relation to compliance, in relation to our compliance automation SKU, and they are available on GitHub repositories. Yes. So my answer to that is yes, and we can provide it for you in the emailers that are going to be followed up post this webinar.
Thank you. And it looks like there's another question here. I saw you were using AWS Scan from SOC2. Do you all have one available for other cloud platforms like GCP and Azure?
So our SOC2 resources and profiles right now, we actually cater to all of them: AWS, Azure, and GCP as well. So all of them are available, and you can definitely use them. So the answer to that is yes.
Thank you, Jacob. And we have time for just one more question here. We are using AWS Cloud, and it is SOC 2 compliant. Why do we need another tooling?
It's actually a very interesting question. So what you're saying is right. AWS, every service that it actually offers is SOC 2 compliant, but you need to understand the shared responsibility model, which all cloud service providers have. So essentially, AWS can provide the security of the cloud. They will, whatever services that they're providing, they will provide SOC 2 compliance. But whatever you as a customer of AWS are putting in the cloud, that is your responsibility. Like an example of that can be if you are storing customer data on top of a database. AWS is not going to ensure its encryption, like we saw with the controls before, right? If you have confidential data, then it needs to be encrypted, but that is not something that AWS will do for you. That is something that you need to do, and you need to ensure that whatever confidential data is going to be coming up, that is also going to be encrypted, and you need to put controls around that as well. So AWS, whatever cloud service providers you use, the majority of them, yes, they are SOC 2 compliant. But whenever you are putting in your applications, when you're working with different cloud resources, you need to ensure that whatever is in your control, whatever part is in your shared responsibility model, whatever is your part, that you are being SOC 2 compliant for that as well. So I hope that answers that question.
Thank you, Jacob, for answering all of these questions. That is all the time we have for today for questions. If we didn't get to your question, we'll make sure to follow up with you directly. So thank you all for joining today's webinar, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.